When you learn to understand who you are and understand that you are a human and that you're not a robot and that you're going to go through your ups and you're going to go through your downs, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It is okay. You have some people that are trying to teach you, like, hey, if you're going through down times in your life, then like it's a problem, and you're when you
Yeah.
look at it like that, you become a victim to that.
Mm,
So
that's interesting. So I want to get into your story. The other thing that struck me about you is that was so fascinating was in our first 10 minutes of meeting, you shared with me your upbringing. You shared with me some things you've overcome in your life and those challenges. And so I want to get to that, but I want to start with where you grew up. What was life like when you were young?
well, I was actually born in Puerto Rico. My mother decided to come to the States. And, it was obviously easy since Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. We just flew over to Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut from about 3 years old to about 5 or 6. And then I moved to Little Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And, I can't say the population is real low, but it's not the ideal place where I would have thought, like, why come to Lancaster out of all places in the world. But I guess
Right.
sometimes life just takes you where life takes you. And my grandmother was there at the time, so my mom was like, all right, well, let's try out Lancaster. Connecticut was so bad. We lived in the hood. My dad's friends were getting killed, and we was like, hey, let's go to Lancaster. So yeah, I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, man. It's
Wow.
really, I had a good childhood for the most part. Like I can say I had a good childhood. I was able to, just be a young boy and just figure out life for what it is. I had adventures, and yeah, Lancaster has made me the man I am today.
Yes, sir. The man you are today, which is your vibe. How did you find Fredo's voice, like who you were growing up where you grew up?
Honestly, I've always been the good-hearted one. So, as being a good-hearted guy, I feel like I've always been able to attract everybody. So I've always been the cool guy, the funny guy, the handsome guy in school. Ever since I was in elementary, I always remember, I always was girl crazy. I've always was a class clown. The teachers loved me. And I lived across the street from the school through elementary and even my first year of middle school. And I had a whole bunch of animals at home. So I was like, just very like I would go to school like, oh yeah, I got a snake, I got an alligator, I got a ferrets, I got a whole bunch of stuff,
Like
and
a
people were like,
zoo.
oh my god, you got a zoo at your house,
Yeah.
let's go. Like it was always, I was always cool for a lot of things. Mind you, most of my birthday parties, my dad and mom would come into the school and do my birthday parties in the classroom. So I've always just been in tune with the people that I was growing up around.
Mm.
But yeah, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I grew up in the hood. So and to me, I loved growing up in the hood.
Yeah.
Why? It's because I'm a Libra. I'm very observant. The hood has gave me something new to look forward to every single day.
Mm.
Some days it was good, some days it was bad, but it always kept me on my toes. And I feel like when you're going through a cycle of being in an environment that is unpredictable, you have to learn how to build an inner character about you to be able to withstand and not like let a lot of these things traumatize you.
Right.
Okay, so I was the only boy. I grew up with two younger sisters. My stepfather raised me since I was 5 years old. I never really got to meet my biological father. It's cool. I had someone that stepped up. We used to go fishing. We go hiking. We
Mm.
used to go taking trips. I had a good childhood. Christmases is good. My dad used to work a lot of hours. My mom worked a lot of hours, but there was always time for us throughout the week. It wasn't like I was just going in my room and things like that. So I can say, like, I look back now and, um, like I said, I've been through a lot. I remember being about 8 years old and seeing my neighbor blow his head off, like with a
Whoa.
gun. like
Wow.
literally looking out the window, and he blew his head off because his girlfriend wouldn't let him in the house, and he was, I'll kill myself if you don't let me in the house. And I remember looking out the window and seeing that, and like seeing blood, brain shattered on our porch too, you know?
Wow.
So, you know, but I look back on that stuff and I can kind of understand. I feel like growing up in that environment, like I said, you can either choose to let your past or what you've seen or what you've gone through make you more resilient, or you can choose to be a victim of your past.
Mm.
Okay. For a while, I was a victim of my past. Why? Because I allowed it to push me to the streets. I allowed the environment to consume me, and I just became a product of my environment. You know, I just was thinking it was cool to, you know, slang drugs and play with guns. And, you know, I've done a lot of stuff in my time that, you know, I'm not most proud of. But here I am today, you know.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't get to make it out of that environment. And I've seen a lot of people I grew up with, they didn't make it, you know, young ages. I've seen people get stabbed, shot, in jail for life, in jail for 20 years. So one thing I always was grateful for, that I had a grandma that prays for me about 20 times a day.
Mm.
And there's nothing better than,
Love a grandma that prays.
yeah, there's nothing
Yeah.
better than having someone, just you knowing that someone prays for you, because it does something to your psyche. And when you go through some of these times where you feel like you're being, how you say, you're being spared, like, you know, there's certain situations I'm like, I don't know how I got out of it.
Mm.
I don't know how I didn't get hit with that bullet. I didn't know how I didn't go to jail for having all this, you know. But I'm like, I always will, like every time anything good happens or I get out in a situation, I'm like, dang, like my grandma's praying for me hard, you know. So yeah, I grew up in a childhood where it was just like a jungle. To me, it was a jungle. I was like little Tarzan, you know. And you know, I love to just be very expressive and
Mm.
just be me. And I built my character off of just being myself. Like I feel like I never was anybody. Like I wasn't trying to be nobody that I wasn't. I was just being me, you know. So
Right.
I was always loved.
You know, we talk a lot about on the show moving from surviving to thriving, and you know how because of the situations that we come from, many of us, especially as men, black men who are constantly in a position of fighting these systems and the giants of our environment, and we're also trying to not be products of our environment. And it's interesting the way you
Mhm.
frame it as like not being a victim or being more resilient. What were some of those early examples of manhood for you?
I didn't have the best role models growing up. Like my dad, you know, my dad was a 9 to 5 dad. He's great. You know, but there was a lot of trauma and pain in the household. So me as a young man, I feel like when us young men, like we're not getting something at home or we're missing something, we usually tend to run to our environment. Okay, like get out the house. Well, you know, when you the home is meant to keep you safe, for you to be able to build a system inside your home which allows you to have some kind of um
Right.
structure. Okay. So, you know, even though I did have, you know, I had my own room, I had, you know, the latest gadgets, and I had the, you know, I would always love just to be in the
Mm.
streets. I love to be in the streets. It's just, to me, like I said, I'm a Libra, so I'm very observant. I was able to get a little bit of an idea of just like everything was just like big. You know, you like I look at an ant and be like, "Dang, you know how I wonder how big the world is to an
Yeah.
ant." And to me, being able to just go, like my dad and mom, I was the only boy and I was the
Right.
oldest, so they used to let me go. Like just come home before, you know, the street lights turn on. So I lived that childhood where people these kids, oh man, they don't even
Mm,
understand the beauty in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's crazy because they say a rose can still grow in the concrete, you know, and it's I got to live that. I got to open up fire extinguishers when it was hot and chase ice cream trucks and ride my bike and go to the woods and climb trees and swing on vines and just, you know, go through my stuff and kiss girls in the alleyway and play manhunt all day and, you know, ride dirt bikes. I lived a good childhood. You know, I got scars from it.
right.
You know,
Same.
I remember being about 7 years old. I was trying to ride two skateboards, and I fell straight on my mouth. I fell straight on my mouth. I chipped my tooth. I had a chipped tooth for many years. Um, but you know what? I've always owned everything, and I enjoyed like just being. I look back now, and I'm like, wow, like, you know, I'm grateful. Like, I'm grateful. Like, even though days wasn't good, I don't sit back and look back at my bad days. I look at my good days. You know, I was a little hard headed, so I was always trying to be the cool guy, class clown, or felt like I needed to make a point or something like that. So I caught myself being on punishment for a long time. So my dad was militant,
Yeah, I was
and
militant.
yeah, when it came to him raising his hand, he would raise his hand. And when it came to him
Yep.
saying, "Hey, you're going to be on punishment for weeks or months," I was on punishment for weeks or months at a time. Um, so yeah, I forgot what was the original direction who was my role models? My role models. Um, I've one of my he's like a brother to me. He was one of the first guys I met when I moved to Lancaster when I was about 5. He ended up, you know, we've been tight ever since. His name is Kerry, and it's like my brother. You know, he was about 4 years older than me. So, um, and at that age, he was already, you know, he was going through his own struggles at home, and he was the only boy with sisters.
Mm,
So I was able to relate to him in a lot of ways, and you know, I seen him, you know, work, have a job early on, and you know, ride his bike to work, and you know, I've always to him, he kind of became like, well, he was like a brother, you know, he was my brother, like so.
yeah.
And we still are super tight to this day. He's evolved from where he came from, and I evolved, and we all went through our trials and tribulations. But I can't really say I had a male figure that I can really say that was like one solid person. I feel like me, I take little bit from
Yeah.
every conversation, any advice I was given. You know, any older guy or, you know, man that decided was like, hey, I want to give this young man some piece of information. I feel like I took a little bit of everything, and just that has become my one role model, you know, growing up.
Yeah, I'm glad we're talking about this now because unfortunately, so many people think about a role model as just being one person. And then if that person is gone, if that person leaves or moves or passes away, then who do you look up to? Who are your systems of support? And I think that there's some research that talks about like if someone who's raised without a dad lives in a neighborhood that has other dads, you know, that child is more likely to like have better mental health outcomes, behavioral outcomes. And but I think the power of your story is that it was community,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was people around you who were passing things down to you that you were able to learn and watch and observe them, and you felt that care, right? You felt that care from the community, and I think that that's an incredible form of mentorship, and role model in itself. I also want to say that like just in knowing you, I've watched how you parent and the kind of dad that you are, and we're going to go back to the younger version of you, but if we could just skip to you being a dad and fatherhood, what has that journey been like for you? And how important is it to you is that relationship you have with your kids in terms of being that role model, that positive example to them?
Yes. So like I said, I was raised, you know, my mom has always been my support system. She's tried to protect me. She's tried to do her best as a mother. the man that raised me, my father, he's always been, mind you, he's never had his own biological kids. So for him to come into, you know, meeting my mom and taking care of us like we were his own, like he basically, like, it's not about who's biologically your father, it's about who stepped up, and he's the man that
Right.
stepped up, and he taught me a lot of valuable lessons. So, I was going to get back to the point that my dad was overall my role model, just because I was able to see all sides and understand now as an adult, looking back now at my dad, I have so much respect for him because,
Mm.
when he met my mom, we was young, we were in the 20s, it's like you're still growing as an adult. You're still growing to become adults yourself, even in your 20s, So for
Right.
him to have
You're
so
still
much
growing.
responsibilities with taking on three kids, I know he always worked long hours, but he always found the time to take us fishing. He
Mm.
had this room called the Bat Cave where it was more of like, the Bat Cave. If nobody knows what a Bat Cave is, it's basically like just a room that a man likes to sit in and has everything around him that's just good for his expression or whatever. And my dad would listen to slow jams all day. My dad would listen to slow jams, 90s,
Yes.
Queen
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Latifah,
Mm-hmm.
Brian McKnight. Like, I grew up on Diana
Ooh, take
Ross
it
and like
back.
just that good old music, just Patti LaBelle, Whitney Houston,
Yep.
So, and it's crazy because a lot of that stuff, I look back, I'm like, a lot of that stuff rubbed off. That's who I am. I love
It's
slow
in you.
jams.
Right.
Um, my
Same.
dad always also taught me, like, it's okay to cry. As a man, it's okay to cry. It's okay for you to be emotional.
Beautiful.
Um,
Beautiful.
Sometimes you just gotta let it go. And my dad used to cry a lot. He lost his mom at a young age. So, you know, I look back now and I'm like, damn, like, my dad didn't choose to be a victim. So why would
Mm.
I choose to be a victim of anything I went through? And maybe days wasn't perfect, or maybe he was a little angrier that day because he was going through his own things. you know.
Yeah.
Um, but regardless of him making some of the choices, he would make sure he like apologize and to take accountability. Like, he taught
Mm.
me how to take
That's huge.
accountability. If you mess up,
Yeah.
you mess up. Like, own it, try to do better. And one statement he always said with me was, "Son, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be better than me." So me as being a
Mm.
father now, I
Wow.
have to understand that I wanted to be a parent that is understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a parent, a father that's caring, but also supportive, also well aware that I can be the best father in the world and I can lay everything out for my kids. That does not mean they are going to reciprocate that in a way that might be beneficial to them. There's some parents out here that raise kids and they think they're doing everything completely right. And their kids grow up and be completely different.
Yeah.
So me, I always told my kids, hey, be what you want to be. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you need to do. Of course, I'm going to support you as your father. I'm going to tell you when you're wrong, and I'm going to push you to be better as an individual person. And I'm gonna push you to just come into your own. Like, I know how it is to see parents try to drill their kids, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of parents drill their kids and their own insecurities. Try to drill their kids and try to get them to do things that they wanted to do when they were kids. That's not fair to a
Yeah.
kid. And I've seen like some of my friends that they used to be star basketball players in high school and even middle school, and they were good kids, and dad was super strict. One of my close friends, he's like a whole like completely different person, and
Wow.
it scarred him in a bad way, where he Like he was a
Yeah.
basketball star and he hates basketball now. Like, you know, and he
Some
wasn't
resentments.
he wasn't care for drugs or in the streets running around in the hood, but like his dad just trying to drill something on him has like pressure bust pipes and it bust his pipes and he went down a dark road and I don't even know if he's recovered since then. I've spoken to his brother a few months ago and I guess he's somewhere else trying to get himself together, but it's sad to see um, when parents are trying to make their child their robot or like I want you to be like the man I wish I was, but they don't even know who they
Hmm.
are. So it becomes a problem
Right.
because you're
Exactly.
ultimately you are always growing and always learning. And from what my experience is, most men don't start maturing till they're in their 30s. So if you have a kid at a young age, you kind of have to be open to figuring it out. There's no there's really no structure, but to be there for your kid and try to do your best as you're evolving to help them evolve. Um,
Okay. Yes.
thank God that we have women in this world because without women in this world, I don't know what we probably would have been off this earth. But I have my kids' mothers are amazing. They are patient. They are,
Hmm.
they are hardworking women. They are strong, and they teach my kids, whether they're my daughters or my sons, um, that ultimately that they're always going to have their back and always push them to do better. So my kids are in great hands. Um, I spent a lot of time in
Hmm.
prison. I did 7 years in prison. So that's 7 years that I missed being home with my kids, and my kids are in different households. So, I look back and I was very, I was very ignorant to the way that I handled myself. And, I was having kids but I decided, you know what? I've had them early. Let's do it. I'm gonna just do the best that I can. At the same time, I want my kids to know, even though that I am their dad, that I am still pushing for greatness. I'm not going to be the one. I'm not going to
Right.
be the father that's just going to sit home and be like, all right, well, I'm going to work my job and come home and make sure everything is totally aligned for y'all, but I'm going to forget about myself because that only leads to depression. I've seen parents just settle to be a parent, but forget to be themselves, forget to be someone that
Very
they
true.
like. I don't want to grow up and be old and die and be like, damn, I didn't try because I don't want to use my kids as an excuse because a lot of parents mess up their relationship with their kids because they blame, oh, I did everything for you and you still grew up and did this, blah, blah, blah. And I could have did this and I chose to do that. That was your choice. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't want to be one of them parents that get older and just like blame my kids for like
Older and bitter.
my life
Yeah.
ending. So
Yeah.
yeah, my kids are amazing, and I can't even say like knowing my kids, their personalities, they're not angry kids, they're not like sad kids, like they're very expressive, loving, caring, smart, energetic, uh, and having
Yeah.
them young has to me it was important because I could still run with them, I could still jump with them, I could still tell my kids, you can't catch me yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm 33 years old. Yeah, and I remember being a young, boy and looking up to my dad, and my dad was like the coolest dad in the world. Like he still was fit, and he could still do backflips and stuff in his 30s. So like, and my dad was like the dad. Like we'll be walking up by the river, and he'll jump in the river and come out with a big snapper turtle, like a huge one. Like he was, yeah, he was very big into National Geographic, Steve Irwin, Jeff Corwin, stuff like that. So I grew up like zoos, animal. I had a whole bunch of animals in my house. So yeah, I just want to be a dad. I want to be a dad that is a vibe. There we go.
There you
I want to
go.
be. I'm still the cool dad. My kids love bringing like even my son. He just moved here. He loves bringing his friends over, and his friends be like, "Wow, like like your dad's still young and he's still doing this and stuff. And I hear my son like telling him, yeah, my dad does this, that. Like I'm the cool dad, and I'm not super hard on my kids because
Mm.
the way that life is, the way the world is working nowadays, like you just gotta love on your kids, and understand that they're gonna go through their trials and errors too. You cannot protect the kids from everything, Sometimes I love my kids
Right.
going through their own lessons. I had to go through my own lessons, and I know later on it's gonna be a blessing for them because they're able to actually be resilient. No matter where you put my
Mm.
kids at, they're gonna be able to adapt and they're gonna be able to win and still be themselves because they don't look at it like if me and my son get into like a little dispute and I have to come down on him a little bit verbally, we can still come back to the table 10 minutes later and act like everything was okay, So yeah, so I'm just gonna be the cool dad.
Cool dad. Yes. Wow. There's so many lessons in what you're saying. Round of applause for your kids, man. I've met them. They're amazing. I'm curious about the lessons that you were talking about at the beginning that were passed down from your stepdad. And you mentioned some of those, like allowing you to cry. I mean, that's huge, expressing your emotions. How many times, and we talk about this all the time on the show, how many times a young boys taught to not emote, to mute, to shut down their feelings, to be disconnected. So to hear that you were actually encouraged to show your emotions is an amazing thing. And the other lesson of your stepfather saying, I don't want you to just be like me. I want you to be a better man than
Mm-hmm.
me. And that instilling in you a motivation that even though he might have been a great person, right, that there's still more for you to discover in terms of your own personal growth and humanity. And yet at the same time, you're a dad and you recognize that even though you can do everything that you think is right for your kid, at the end of the day, your kids will still be their
Mm-hmm.
individual selves and have their own lessons to learn in the same way you did. So you touched a little bit on, your own experience and journey, despite having this great father figure and all the love around you as a kid, which was being incarcerated. Um, and it saddens me deeply when I think about school to prison pipeline and how Black men are incarcerated, Black and brown people are incarcerated in this country at such an extraordinary rate. Um, so I guess I want to just address a little bit of that experience, like what that was for you, and how did you get through that 7 years in prison, being away from your family, your children, your loved ones, and going through that very difficult experience?
um, how do I break it down? All right, one thing I did speak about was that my father had taught me to take accountability. And one of the other valuable lessons he taught me is behind every action, there's consequences. So the fact that I learned that early on in my, I've been punished for like a month or two straight. And, as a kid thinking a month or two straight, I can't go outside. And like, like to me, that's like another form of like, kind of like imprisonment, you know what I'm saying? Because I wanted to be outside with my friends. I lived on the attic. My room was in the attic. So I would constantly look and like the school was right across the street from me. So when I was on punishment, I used to be out that window looking like, dang, I wish I could go out there. I would see my friends running around and I'd be like, dang, like, so it's crazy how that transitioned to me being older and I was locked up in a prison in my own neighborhood where I could see people driving by from the neighborhood outside the prison. So the fact that I was already able to deal with these emotions as a kid, it's sad to say already had it already had what's the word I'm looking for? It's already prepared me for prison. And it's sad, but the reality is that if I decided to go sell drugs, if I decided to make a bad action and I get locked up for it, there's rules. There's rules, there's laws, and when you break them, you have to serve the consequences. And to me, when the first time I got locked up, I was 18 years old, and I remember going into jail, and I wasn't even scared. Like, I remember getting locked up. I got caught drinking beer, walking down the street, and the cops stopped me. I was
Wow.
18 years old, and they searched me and found crack cocaine inside my vest. And I had jewelry on. I was all fresh. I was in the streets. I was making money. But I still was doing dumb shit. Like, who the heck is walking down the street? It wasn't even me who was drinking an open container either. It was somebody I was with, and they searched all of us. And I got caught, so they brought me to prison. And I remember walking into prison my first time. I'm like, okay, this is kind of like the way they strip you down and make sure that. But as soon as I hit the block with my bin to go to the cell that I was going to, like, a lot of my friends were in there already.
Wow.
So all I heard was, Fredo, oh, what you doing? Like, it was kind of like that. Like, so,
Wow.
my peoples was already in there. So it was like back to being back in the hood,
Mm-hmm.
because being in the hood is another form of imprisonment, if you want to think about it. You know what I'm saying? So I was just back to being around my boys that I probably haven't seen in a while. And, there was like a rush of, like, it's sad to say it, but I'd rather be honest. And it was like another rush of excitement,
Right.
because it was like, all right, now, because I told you I'm a Libra and I love new things. To me, it was just like another new jungle for me.
Mm.
So now I'm in prison, and I adapted quickly, But I will say, because I did have a girlfriend at the time, which is the mother of my oldest daughter, and I'm still like wanting to be free and stuff. So after like a couple months, I was like, Mom, get me out of here, man.
Yeah, get me out of here.
Yeah, because, all right, so just to break down how I initially, just the system, how it was set up, we were locked down 23 and a half hours a day
Wow.
in a 6x8, 6x10 cell. So you're in a cell with another man, another guy for 23 and a half hours a day.
Wow.
Okay. So I
Talk
was in
about
a
lockdown.
maximum prison inside this small city. We wasn't outside. So the only time I had to go be socialized and do some, like, was outside of the cell. So I did enjoy reading. I would read a lot of books. But, like, I'm in a freaking cell. I don't I could touch both sides of the walls with my arm, with my wingspan. Like, it just wasn't,
Wow.
that shit is traumatizing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it has its own trauma. But it helps, like, to me, like, since I made it through that, I have another kind of sense of, like, it's not, when something happens, it's not that deep. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm.
it's not that
That's
deep. I'm not in
interesting.
jail, which is kind of like its own trauma itself, because some
Sure.
things need to be felt and some things need to be expressed. And, but things were, them situations had hardened me to a point where it's like, I'm really good at compartmentalizing
Yeah.
my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I put my kids in one box. I put, my finances in one box. I put my friends in another box, and I can literally, like, go through every day like that, where everything's separated. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't intertwine everything. Like, one thing is not going to mess up my other thing. Like, I can literally, like, go through something with my kids and be able to go into a function, and like, I don't carry shit with me, because I had to go through, um, these hard times, where it kind of had, like, taught me, like, how to be able to mentally
Yeah.
progress.
Right.
Like, if you let the whole world affect you, or you let a lot of things in the world affect you, that's just going to bust you. Like, and some things are inevitable. Some days are going to be hard. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it. I always looked at it, and I remember being a young kid and looking at, like, they used to have a lot of the commercials with like these young kids from like Africa or like India or anywhere around the world, and they was asking for 10 cents for water.
Right.
And I'm like, I always had water. I always had a roof over my head. I always had, my will, and I've always had my ambition. And I'm like, I wasn't set up to fit. I wasn't brought here to fail. I had good structure around me. So it's like, why complain about certain things, when it's really not that bad? And a lot of the times I tell people, um, you put yourself in that situation. So don't be so spoiled in this world when you decide to make a choice and you get punished for it that you can't take accountability and understand there's consequences. At the same time, the US prison system is so fucked up, excuse my language,
Yep.
that it's just not fair at times, and they don't care if you're a young man going through something and you made a bad choice. At the end of the day, the law is the law. If you break it, they will, whatever the
They'll break
judge.
you.
I'm really not big into one judge being able to uh, put a man in jail for life.
Mm.
Um, there's different levels to it. I just seen too much of two guys having the same situation, and one judge does this and another judge does this. So hey, two guys had shot somebody. One got 5 years, and the other one got 21 years. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, what? Whoever, you know what? And I have to look back on going back in history,
Yep.
and it's just another form of slavery.
For sure.
It's another form of slavery. It's another form of power.
Yep.
And this a lot of the government and the people that are holding these gavels and making these choices to lock these men up are people that are still, these are older, most of them are older white men that have still have that slavery mindset because they grew up in an era, and to them a black man is like, okay, yeah, you deserve it. The fuck,
Yeah.
and they don't think about, they don't, it's just a shame. There's a lot of incarcerated people, and I feel like the way they lock you in a cell for 23 and a half hours a day, like, how the fuck do you come out of jail and be able to evolve?
Right.
Everybody's not built like that. Everybody's not structured like that. Everybody is not capable of getting out of that situation and becoming something of themselves. And thank God, man. I spent times, it was so hot, mind you, there was no air conditioner in that. So when I was locked up for 23 and a half hours a day, and it was 90 something degrees outside, that means my cell was about 110 degrees in a 6x8 cell, and I was stuck in there.
Yeah.
I'm talking about to the point, and I grew up having asthma. So like, I seen people commit suicide being in that heat. I seen people die from heat, from just being exhausted from heat exhaustion. And I remember having to pour like cold water on the floor and just laying there, like basically in my boxers, just trying to get some air out of like the slit, because the way the doors are set, there's only like a little, we call it a wiki, where you can slide trays in, and then like a little slot on the bottom where you can kind of like get some air in, but it's like some days it was so hot they didn't even have a fan in there, so it was like, this is like torture. But I always, what? It's crazy to say, but throughout all of that, I was still able to smile. I was still able to laugh, still crack jokes.
That's amazing to me. How are you able to do that?
Because you had no other to me, I had no other choice. I could sit there and be depressed and let the shit eat me. It's be like another form of cancer, or I can sit there and make the best of whatever. Why would I sit there and be subject to letting these motherfucking COs or these white motherfuckers that have this, like, and it wasn't even white people. It was some black guards was dickheads too. but they're only a product of their environment. And at the end of the day, they know they got to confine to some of these rules, and they got to be a certain way, or these guys, these Caucasians, are going to fire them. You know what I'm saying? So, um,
Mm.
it sucked when it came from your own people, when your own guards are being assholes and doing shit that like they were just doing extra to make your life a living hell in there. But I was just built different, man. I've been going through hardship since I was a kid. So to me, it was like, all right, I got to find my inner peace. I still got to have my inner peace. You might have me incarcerated physically, but mentally, I was not incarcerated. I was not defeated. And I know I was
Wow.
going to get out, and I know I was going to still be who Fredo is. And I'm still that loving, caring, energetic, funny, life of the party type of person. And even though I was in a whole nother different setting, I still had to apply them same. I had to apply all the good things that I had within me to be able to overcome that situation. So, and I know me, me being a good spirit
Yeah.
is contagious.
Mm.
So, like, I would make other people's days good because I was just able to be me. I would crack joke, make people laugh. We would, at the same time, I tend to talk a lot more to the older guys who had a lot more knowledge.
Hmm.
To me, I wasn't really big into just being around all the knuckleheads, especially during situations like that. Like the old heads were like always be like, man, there's something different about you, man. You actually listen. You actually pay attention. I like you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And not to like you in jail where they was trying to put candy under my pillow, but but to like you, yeah, but to like you as like, yo, like, you know what, like, damn, like I look to you as a son. Like I remember when I was upstate, because upstate's a whole nother monster. But upstate, you get a little more of like freedom. You get to work. You get to go to the gym. You get to go to the yard. It was different from being in a county jail.
Okay.
But I remember I used to play Scrabble with this older guy. His name was Aziz, and he was Muslim, and he would always try to get me to take my shahada. He was like, man, like, we need a soldier like you. And I was like, hey, I respect your religion. I'm Christian, and like, but we got super super close, and we would just play Scrabble all the time. And he was partially blind,
Wow.
so like it was, to me, it did something to my heart when he would come out, and like he really can't see much,
Mm.
but he would always call for me, like, yo, where my guy Fredo at? Because he was looking forward to playing Scrabble with me. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So
That's beautiful.
so like little stuff like that, man. I've helped a lot of people in prison. I've been in a lot of people's support system. Um I'm I'm like that every single day. If I can help somebody, I can help somebody. If I can give them information, I will give them information.
Yes.
Sometimes I fail to take my own information, but I'm working on things.
Of
I'm working
course.
on
We
things,
all are.
and my heart is always good. So my heart is always pure, and this is why I feel like I'm winning in life, because
Yes.
I've never done anything out of maliciousness. Um, I've always tried to push out happiness,
Mm.
push out growth,
Hmm.
push out just the good things that I feel like sometimes people need. Sometimes people, a lot of times people, and we all need a little bit of push. Like, we all need to smile and laugh, and make sure when you decide to do this instead of like this, it does something to your heart. You can feel it. Like if you
It's
smile
a
right
shift.
now, like you can feel your heart do something different. It's
Yeah.
like a muscle is attached to your mouth. So, um, oh, and look at my slippers.
Just smile. Everybody
Yeah,
smile.
just
Yo, man. It's Fredo. It's honestly, first of all, thank you for sharing. Um, thank you for doing that because I know that it takes vulnerability, it takes courage, it takes you being open. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's just incredible to me having been around you, having spent time with you and your family. I remember when we went on that race, you were the life of the party. It's like 5 in the morning and everybody's tired and you were motivating everybody. Like, this is really who you are. And so just to see the way you've been able to reprocess what you've been through, like you say, not be a victim to your circumstance or to your past, but to be someone who is resilient and who has overcome, and you repurpose that energy, that history to become a better person. So, as we wrap, what for you are the things that you try to do every day to take care of your mental health and to be a better man? I know you talked about smiling and just sort of having your own journey of in faith, but what does that growth journey look like for you on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, so I feel like one of the most important things to make an everyday better for yourself and for me individually is to focus on self love.
Mm,
When you learn to understand who you are and understand that you are a human and that you're not a robot and that you're going to go through your ups and you're going to go through your downs, and it's okay.
yeah.
It is okay. You have some people that are trying to teach you, like, hey, if you're going through down times in your life, then like it's a problem. And when
Yeah.
you look at it like that, you become a victim to that.
Mm, that's
So,
interesting.
I've learned to just take more time to focus on myself instead of trying to have somebody else focus on me when they haven't been through the same shit as me. You know what I'm saying? I take little things that I need to take throughout the day if I'm able to get some good information. But ultimately, I'm growing within myself every single day, and I know my heart, and I know that I'm going to continue to push forward. I'm continue to help people. I'm continue to pour into people. But ultimately, you got to pour into yourself. It's not being
Period.
selfish. You have to put time in to understand who you are in order for you to be the best you.
Yes.
Does that mean you're going to be perfect? And everybody listening to this right now, does that mean you're going to be perfect? No.
No.
But does that mean that you're not worth it? No.
Right.
You're going to go through a whole like roller coaster of an emotions. Guess what? Everybody goes through these things.
Mm,
And don't be fooled by what the social media shows you. And make sure that you set your social media up to be kind of like realistic, and don't sit here and look at, TV or social media and think that everything is perfect. And some of these people that's giving out their lessons haven't gone through their own lessons themselves, and they have this perfect life. And some of the most richest people financially are some of the most brokest people mentally. And
true.
I've seen it. I've been around
Me too.
people. Money does not buy happiness. It might
At
help a
all.
situation, but ultimately, remember, when they say more money, more problems, that's a fact. That's a fact. And the more money I was able to accumulate, I've seen that it was more problems that come with it. But it's okay, because guess what?
Yeah.
When you're resilient and you figure out that you're not, when you realize that you're not a victim
Mm,
and you decide to not be victimized, then your perception changes. When your perception changes, everything around you changes. And what might usually stab you might just be a poke. Oh, I feel it.
mm,
You put your hand on the stove one time, you get burnt. You're not going to do it again. It's not going to hurt the same the next time.
yeah.
Um, just be smart. Take accountability for your shit. And if you are, and for anybody listening to this, like, if you're not somewhere that you want to be, believe that you have the power to be where you want to be as long as you're willing to work for it.
Okay.
You can't say, hey, I want an amazing body, but you don't want to go to the gym or eat healthy. You can't say I want to be rich if you don't have no drive and you don't want to work and you don't want to take risks in life. You think a lot of these people are rich overnight. No, it's not instant gratification. You have to work every day. It's a progress. Every day is a process. And you have to at least take 1%, 2% of every day to become better, to become the better percent, and that's going to be align you in the future to be able to get to where you want to be at in life.
Mm,
So, I advise everyone who's listening to this, and even you, Laj, just look within and look at yourself and face yourself in the mirror, and like
yeah.
challenge yourself. And if you're not willing to go push further in life, then just be accountable for it. But don't sit around and mope. Don't sit around and pass that on to the next person. They don't deserve that.
Yeah.
You know, I had to separate myself from a lot of people because it's like, don't make your bullshit my bullshit. It's not fair to me. How
Right.
can you call yourself my friend if you are constantly putting your shit on my shit in my life? You're fucking up my day. I don't want to wake up to your bullshit. I don't want to wake up to your stress. Of course, I'm gonna be here at times to give you some motivation. And as a friend, I'm going to do that. But when it becomes a constant issue and you're constantly going through the same cycles that you decide not to break, because ultimately you have the power to change.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with change. Change is beautiful. I just had a big ass beard and long hair the other day, and I just decided to change it. And I feel I feel refreshed. I feel light, and I feel great.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with change. Don't be scared of change. Change is what makes this world the way it is now. And it's a beautiful place. Of course, there's always some bad shit, but ultimately, this world is only as much as you make it. And you can find the beauty in it, or you can sit around and you got one life, unless you come back as a butterfly or a dog, or I don't know the rare process. But yeah, love yourself.
Love yourself.
Me and my lady was talking about last night about self-care.
Yeah.
You know, focus on self-care. It's super important for you too. Meditation, your own form of meditation. Figure what that is. It doesn't always mean you have to fold your legs in a freaking triangle and say, that's not my form of meditation. My form of meditation is getting in the car with no music on and driving and just seeing everything around me and being grateful for every person I drive by that's homeless and like doesn't have the same life as me, or me being able to see the trees that are growing and you know, just breathe fresh air. To me, that's my form of meditation. You know, so and nobody can take that from me but me. You know, so
yes.
Look within yourself, find your forms of meditation, love yourself, and know who you are. Because when you ultimately know who you are and you get to wake up every day and be yourself, no one can take that from you.
Nobody.
But you.
Right.
So if you decide to be anybody else but yourself, just believe that you are going to go through a whole nother level of emotions, because you should be able to be yourself around your friends, your colleagues, the people you work around. Like, if not, that's what causes that inner battle where you're like, damn, wake up and be like, whoa, today I get to be Fredo. You know what I'm saying? Today I get to be Laz.
I get to be Laz.
You know, God made me the way I am, and I'm going. And you know, I'm not the most religious person. I'm very spiritual, but you know, don't always put everything on religion as well. Like, understand that God has placed you here, and you know, whatever higher power you look up to or whatever, understand that you have been blessed with life. That doesn't mean that the higher power is going to do all the work. No, you have to do the work within yourself. You know what I'm saying? Too, as well.
Yes.
You can't sit here and be like, oh, I'm going to put everything on. No. Do your due diligence, work on things yourself as well, and continue to progress, you know? So that's my closing statement.
Wise words from Fredo, y'all. Fredo, everybody. Follow Fredo Vibes everywhere. Fredo, bro, thank you for this. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your light with us on this platform. I love you, and your
love you too, bro.
And I'm so grateful that, you know, we get to have you on this
I'll
platform.
Be back. I'll be back. And I feel like for one segment I need to be interviewing you, and we're gonna
Let's do it. Let's do it. Role reversal.
Let's do that. So I'm down, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate your energy. I appreciate you listening to me. And everybody go follow Fredo Vibes and just come vibe with Fredo, you know?